House will come back to order. House will come back to order. The clerk will read the caption to a group of privileged resolutions. Clerk will read.
Recognizing and honoring the Jonesboro High School mock trial team, commending Mr. Chris Parker, Coosa High School's 2016 star teacher, commending Tim Burton, Model High School's 2016 star teacher, honoring the life and memory of Dennis Michael Cream, and for other purposes completes the reading of the privileged resolutions.
Mr. Clerk, would you ring the bell? Is there any objection to the adoption of the privilege resolutions? The chair hears none and the resolutions are adopted. House will be at order. Members, please return to your seats. Take your meetings outside. Chair recognizes for a morning order Representative Stephen Allison.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm going to do something very unusual for me, which is read off a script. I've spent the last 8 years down here campaigning, speaking to my district, doing it off the cuff, but so that I don't forget anything, and so I get to say exactly what I wrote, I'm going to go off the script. 9 years ago, in a small country courthouse in northeast Georgia. It was April or May, and I was standing by the wall waiting for my divorce hearing to start. And I saw a country lawyer that I had known for 15 years meander into the courthouse. And as I had always done for the previous 6 or 7 years, I went up to him and I said, "David, how'd the session go?" That friend, of course, is Speaker David Ralston. And before he was Speaker, he was a small country lawyer and my friend. And he looked at me and he said, "I'm sick of you asking how the session is. If you want to know, pony up and run." A year and a half later, I was elected to this body. And not a day goes by that I haven't blamed him for that. First and foremost, I want to thank the people of the 8th House District for giving me their trust this last 8 years to come down here to Atlanta and speak as their voice in the Capitol. I have had the privilege of representing the most beautiful district in the state that stretches from the heights of Brasstown Bald to the depths of Tallulah Gorge, from the small hamlet of Helen, Georgia, to the college town of Young Harris. My district contains 9 cities, 5 state parks, portions of 4 counties. The people that I represent are fiercely independent, proud of their heritage, and incredibly kind. It has been so great to get to know so many people of my community and the opportunity to serve them in this capacity. So few people will ever know the honor that comes from being elected by your community to be their representative, and I want my constituents to know how much I have valued their trust. During this time in the General Assembly, I have been blessed to have 5 different people assist me as legislative aides. They have helped me with constituent communication, policy analysts, taking constituents on tours of the Capitol. The folks were instrumental in assisting me, and they are the backbone of any good legislator. Thanks to Josh, Brent, Jared, Jessica, and Matt. You guys are the best. To my legislative assistants, I want to say a big thanks for all that you guys have done for my constituents, from handling hundreds of problems through the years, from driver's license renewals to problems with a various state agency or contacting the Department of Motor Vehicles or the Georgia, any of the state agencies. Don't ever take for advantage your legislative assistants, because they spend the majority of their life making y'all look better. To one in particular, to Diana Brooks, you have been such a blessing to me and my family. You were always kind and supporting. You take care of my wife Virginia and I as if we were family, treated every call from a constituent as if they were the most important person in this state. You treated everyone with humility and respect, and your personality shines through with everyone you help. We still have people in our district that sing your praises. The assistance that you've given to me and everything you ever did made me look good. You are a woman of wise intellect and of the highest character, and our sweet 504 hasn't been the same since you got promoted. We are so proud of you, love you, and Diana, remember, wherever you are, you always have family in the mountains. Everyone knows in this chamber how important that seatmates can become during a session. They are the backbone of folks who keep you sane in this pressure cooker we call the General Assembly. I want to thank Dale Rutledge. I want to thank Alex Atwood and the backseat boys back there for warming me as I came back there these past 2 years. I know that I can be a handful, and for that, I appreciate it. There are a couple of people who have left this chamber that I want to mention. First and foremost, I want to thank my good friend Ed Lindsay for being such a wonderful mentor and a great friend. I can still remember the shock when I got the call in 2002 that Ed had picked me to serve as Chief Deputy Whip for the 2013 session. Ed, I know I wasn't the easiest or the safest person for you that you could have chosen to lead your whip team, and I tried to repay you every day by giving 100% in the job. You were a great mentor and a friend. I miss you every day. To people that I didn't get to serve with long enough and have left before me, Martin Scott, Tom Graves, Billy Horn, Mark Hatfield, Doug Holt, Delvis Dutton, as many others, including my brothers from the class of 2008 who have gone before me, Rick Austin and Michael Harden. You guys were the best. I have missed serving with you these past 4 years. I finally get to understand what y'all have known for a while. You get a lot more family time when you're no longer here. I want to give a big shout to my dear friend, Majority Whip Matt Ramsey. He has been a great friend, a great mentor, talked me off the ledge many of times, and for that I appreciate it. I hope this body knows what kind of loss you'll suffer without Matt being here next year, but I'm sure his wife and kids will be glad he's home. For those of us who don't have the privilege of going home every night, those of us who have to stay down here away from your families, I don't know if you understand the bond that develops between roommates, suite mates, people you see out, because unlike some of you that get to drive down here, I leave my wife and kids every night on Sunday and oftentimes don't see them till Friday. I have spent the last 8 years living with a wild assortment of people, and it has been a blast. To Sean Jurgensen, to whom I lived 4 years, Doug Holt 4 years. I've lived with a congressman, and I've lived with some people that I will never name again. But to the one I have to mention, John P. Zolden, brother, I couldn't have made it the last 3 years if you weren't here. He is an outstanding legislator and a better friend, and I appreciate his friendship. To my folks in and out of the Suite 504 and the LOB, Regina, David, Michael, Sam, Scott, so many others. You guys have been a great support team for me. You've been great friends. I know you'll continue to do good work down here, and I appreciate everything you've been to me. Kevin Cook, you've been a brother to me, my friend. I don't think I can say anything more outside of that. There's no closer gift than I can have than to have a brother I never had, and you are that. Before I finish and mention my family, I would like to share a few thoughts, especially for the newer members of the chamber. Just some ramblings of a guy going home. I would like to encourage everyone in this body to govern like you campaign. It is my opinion that we owe it to those that we represent to govern by the principles that we campaign under. Whether you are the most right-wing conservative or the most liberal Democrat, when we were on the campaign trail, we made promises. We advertised our values to our constituents. I believe that we owe it to them to honor those. Never forget down here who you represent. It's easy to forget that 10 million Georgians are affected by every decision that we make in this body. Each one of us has the privilege of representing 54,000 people in our districts. They depend upon us to exercise our judgment when it comes to legislation. Our thoughts should always be on how our actions affect them rather than on how they affect us. A wise man, when I was a freshman, looked me straight in the eye and said, "Stephen, vote like you're not coming back." I want to express that sentiment and pass that on. I wish we could all examine every bill without the microscope of re-election hanging over our heads. If you evaluate every bill on its merits and vote the principles you believe in, I can promise you this: you will never regret a vote you make in this General Assembly. For you new folks, I would ask that you don't keep score. One of the most divisive things I've seen here in our time is the obsessive desire to keep score on who votes for and against our bills. When did we forget that all of our districts are different, and what's right for one location in the state may not be right against another? One of the men I respect the most in this chamber is possibly the one whom I voted against the most. Chairman Ron Stevens has always understood that we represent different areas of the state with different constituencies. Not once in my 8 years has Chairman Stevens ever kept score, berated me about a vote I made. He always comes up to me with that warm and friendly smile, never once questioned a vote I made. Chairman Stevens, you're a class act. I would like to encourage folks to live and let live. Finally, get to know members of the opposition party. We all know politics is a team sport, but that doesn't mean we need to demonize the other side. Some of my fondest memories here are debating issues with members of the minority caucus. Some people I count as close friends vote in opposition primaries than I do. I have the utmost respect for my friend Ron Mayo, whom I came in with in the class of 2008. I've enjoyed watching with respect as Scott Holcomb rails against a bill that I believe in with every fiber of my being. And I have learned more watching Mary Margaret Oliver evaluate and dissect a bill in the committee process than I've learned almost in anything else here. We don't all have to agree, but we can be civil. And there's a lot that can be learned from members of the opposition party. Finally, I want to talk to my family. Family has been the most important thing during my years of service. They've campaigned for me, laughed with me, encouraged me, and prayed for me. My parents, Dale and Carol Allison, my Uncle Roy, and my Aunt Jo. Without them, I wouldn't be here, and I would have been lost. I want to let them know how much they mean to me, how much I love them with every fiber of my being. This place is hard on its best days, but try serving in this body with a family member who serves in the chamber at the same time. The last 3 terms I've had privilege of serving with my brother Buzz Brockway. I still chuckle at the reaction we get when people find out that we're friends. The mild-mannered and soft-spoken Buzz compared to the gregarious and outspoken Allison. What a difference we must make to people. Our time away from the Capitol is still filled with politics. Will y'all go home to celebrate Easter, St. Patrick's Day. We do a play-by-play of the session, what we did right, what we did wrong, and generally I discuss all the ways that Buzz missed those votes. One of the greatest things in my life I will no longer miss is being able to say to Buzz, well, you know, once you've been here as long as I have, you'll get it. In all seriousness, Buzz, you're the finest man I know, an example of what it means to be a godly man. I'm proud you found and married my sister, and I'm honored to call you my brother. Keep up the good work and find your own way. To my wife, Regina, who can't be here today, words cannot express the appreciation I have for you. You have been a comfort and support to me like unlike any other. You have had to play superwoman for the past 8 years with a husband gone 3 months out of the year. You've had to juggle so much in order for me to serve, and you have never complained, always encouraged. God broke the mold when he made you. I have been blessed to have you in my life for the last 20 years of marriage, and I am looking forward to tomorrow as we write the next chapter of our lives side by side as it was intended. To my sons, Thomas and Nathaniel, I want to say how proud I am to be your dad. You have grown into fine young men, and you make your mother and I happy every single day. And I also want to apologize. These past few years, while I've had this job, I've missed soccer games and swim meets, Boy Scout meetings and family functions. I have missed so much of your youth juggling my law practice, campaigning, political meetings, and session. You guys have been so understanding and patient. I would like you to hear something before you decide if my time down here is worthwhile. In 1961, days before he'd be sworn in, President John F. Kennedy delivered a speech to the Massachusetts House of Representatives. In that speech, he said the following: when at some future date, the High Court of History sits in judgment on each of us, our success or failure will be measured by the answer to 4 questions. First, were we truly men of courage? Second, were we truly men of judgment? Third, were we truly men of integrity? Finally, were we truly men of dedication? To my boys, I hope when you are older and you judge my service here, you can truly say that your father answered yes to all those questions. When I was sworn in for my 4th term, as my wife held my Bible, I placed my hand on top to take the oath as my finger rested on the scripture. In front of my Lord and this body, I will now recite 2 Timothy 4:7. I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith. Mr. Speaker, for the last time, I yield the well.
Chair recognizes Chairman Carl Rogers for a morning order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is round 2 of my farewell. But I'm privileged to have
the microphone turned off.
I'm not going to talk about anything else. No more red books, no committee on assignments. What else did you want me to mention? Anyway, my daughter Jennifer's here, who's always been a big supporter of mine, and naturally, and our son couldn't be here when I did my farewell, but we're happy to have 3 of our grandchildren with us, 3 grandboys. I've got Zachary, who's almost 4, Zachary, and I've got Bradford, who's 12, and I got Riles, who's 10 years of age. And I just want to say thank them for coming down and appreciate all their support, and I look forward to spending more time with them. And I will yield the well, Mr. Speaker. Wait a minute, Nikki? Okay, Nikki Randall, I forgot. I didn't cry like you did, so thank you.
Chair recognizes Representative Gravely for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that the House insist on its position on SB 199.
Representative Gravely has moved that this House insist on its position on Senate Bill 199. The clerk will read the caption.
Senate Bill 199 to be titled an act to amend Chapter 2, Title 21 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to primaries and elections generally so as to provide a definition to prohibit certain activities within close proximity to polling places and to provide for related matters.
Chair recognizes Representative Gravely to explain his motion.
Mr. Speaker, as explained earlier, this was a very simple bill. It explained what is and what is not campaign material. It also gave a 2-day extension to our local municipalities and counties on elections where no one had signed up to run. And there was also some cleanup language in there. And I would ask that this House, as previously stated, insist. I yield the will.
Representative Gravely has moved that this House insist on its position on Senate Bill 199. Is there objection? Is there objection? The chair hears none, and this House has insisted on its position on Senate Bill 199. Chair recognizes Chairman Weldon for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to adhere to the House position and appoint a committee of conference on Senate Bill 64.
Chairman Weldon moves that the House insist on its or adhere to its position in disagreeing to the Senate substitute to Senate Bill 64, and that a committee of conference be appointed. The clerk will read the caption.
Senate Bill 64 to be entitled an act to amend Code Section 1511-2, Title 19, and Chapter 10, and Title 31, the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to definitions for the Juvenile Code, domestic relations, and vital records.
Is there objection to the gentleman's motion? The chair hears none. This House has insisted, and the chair appoints as a committee of conference Chairman Weldon of the 3rd District, Chairman Welch of the 110th District, and Representative Atwood of the 179th District. Chair recognizes Representative Beskin for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 959.
Representative Beskin has moved that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 959. The clerk will read the caption.
House Bill 959 to be titled an act to amend Title 20 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to education so as to update and clarify certain provisions relating to K through 12 education.
Chair recognizes Representative Beskin to explain her motion.
Mr. Speaker, members of the House, this is House Bill, Senate substitute to House Bill 959, which is the annual clarification and revisions to the Title 20 Education Act. This bill last left the House with a unanimous vote of approval on February 26th. Since that time, in the Senate, it was amended to insert some provisions regarding strategic waivers for the Georgia Technical College System and the College and Career Academies. We also inserted a provision for our own Representative Mike Glanton regarding the Education Children of Military Families Act. With that, Mr. Speaker, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
You do not have any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
On the lady's motion that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 959, all those in favor will vote aye, those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machine. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine on the lady's motion. The ayes are 159, the nays are 1. And this House has agreed to the Senate substitute to House Bill 959. Chair recognizes Chairman McCall for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that this House agree to the Senate substitute of House Bill 987.
Chairman McCall has moved that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 987. The clerk will read the caption.
House Bill 987 to be titled an act to amend Chapter 5 of Title 48 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to ad valorem taxes on property.
Chair recognizes Chairman McCall to explain his motion.
It seems that we have to put regular English into plain English to make certain tax assessors in the state of Georgia understand what we're talking about in the law. We passed part of this out of the House dealing with not-for-profit rodeos, and when it got to the Senate, there became a problem with the tax assessors understanding what was written on line 19 of the bill, and then they just added about 4 or 5 words in there that made it clear as to what the law said, so tax assessors out in the counties wouldn't be trying to stick it to our citizens for no reason. I'd appreciate you voting on it if there's no questions.
And no questions. On the gentleman's motion that this House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 987, all those in favor will vote aye, those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machine. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine on the gentleman's motion. The ayes are 160, the nays are 2, and this House has agreed to the Senate substitute, House Bill 987.
The chair recognizes Representative Hitchens for a motion.
I move the House agree to the Senate amendment to House Bill 976.
The clerk will read the captions.
House Bill 976 to be titled an act to amend Article 5 of Chapter 18 and Title 50 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to state records management so as to provide for minimum retention periods for video recordings for law enforcement.
The chair recognizes Representative Hitchens to explain the Senate amendment.
This is a bill that went through that dealt with police video cameras and retention of records. It passed pretty much as it was in the Senate. They did take issue with the fact that it would cause you would be required to pay $12 to get a copy of it under open records. So they changed the $12 to $10. I'd be glad to take any questions.
The gentleman does not have any questions.
I yield the will.
On the gentleman's motion that the House agree to the Senate amendment to House Bill 976, all those in favor will vote yes, those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machine. For what purposes Representative Stover rise?
Pursuant to Rule 133, I'd like to be excused from this vote.
The Journal will so reflect. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine. On the gentleman's motion, the ayes are 163 and the nays are 0, and the House has agreed to the Senate amendment to House Bill 976. The chair recognizes Chairman Knight for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to make a motion that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 364.
Chairman Knight moves that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 364. The clerk will read the caption.
House Bill 364 to be titled an act to amend Chapter 6 and Title 48 of the Fiscal Code of Georgia Annotated relating to taxation of intangibles so as to change certain provisions regarding the real estate transfer tax.
The chair recognizes Chairman Knight to explain the Senate substitute.
Thank you. If y'all remember, this is a bill went through regarding Department of Revenue Commissioner being able to send back the digest for tax or property that had been illegally assessed, put on the digest. It got over to the Senate, and at my request, and with the Department of Revenue and others at the table, we tightened up the second part, which had to do with the provision that if they're caught a second time, that the Department of Revenue would notify Department of Community Affairs for removal as a official status for the local government status. And what we did is we made sure that our counties could indeed have that cure, and that's what the language was changing, such that the counties could make sure that they replace that board. And we did have the proper language in there to make sure the counties had a cure. ACCG was at the table and actually brought a lot of this to us. So that was the change in the bill. Appreciate your favorable consideration.
The gentleman has yielded the well. On the gentleman's motion that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 364, all those in favor will vote aye, those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machine. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine. On the gentleman's motion, the ayes are 163 and the nays are 0, and the House has agreed to the Senate substitute to House Bill 364.
Chair recognizes Chairman Benton for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Make a motion that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 51.
Chairman Benton has moved that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 51. The clerk will read the caption.
House Bill 51 to be titled an act to amend Article 3 of Chapter 4, Title 48 of the Fiscal Code of Georgia Annotated relating to redemption of property sold for taxes.
Chair recognizes Chairman Benton to explain his motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, this bill passed the House last year. It had to do with money that is that people who buy property at the courthouse step, money that they receive back if that property is redeemed. One of those items that is not refundable is homeowners association dues, and this bill closes that loophole. Be glad to answer any questions. The change that was made was on line 36. The date 2015 was changed to 2016. Be glad to answer any questions, Mr. Speaker.
You have no questions.
Thank you. I yield the way.
On the gentleman's motion that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 51, all those in favor will vote aye, those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines. On the gentleman's motion, the ayes are 157, the nays are 4. This House has agreed to the Senate substitute to House Bill 51. Chair recognizes Representative Waits for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move the House agree to Senate substitute for House Bill 54.
Representative Waits has moved that the House agree to the Senate amendment to House Bill 54. The clerk will read the caption.
House Bill 54 to be titled an act to amend subparts 7 of Part 3 of Article 7 of Chapter 3, Title 20 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated, relating the grants to children of law enforcement officers, firefighters, and prison guards.
Chair recognizes Representative Waits to explain her motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Senate substitute makes two changes. It includes making the voluntary donation tax deductible, and it also adds the word paramedics to the list of covered classes for fallen heroes. I ask for your favorable consideration, and I thank you to all the public safety officials that have joined us today. Mr. Speaker, I yield the will.
On the lady's motion that the House agree to the Senate amendment to House Bill 54, all those in favor will vote aye, those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines. On the lady's motion, the ayes are 163, the nays are 0. This House has agreed to the Senate amendment to House Bill 54. Chair recognizes Chairman Jaspers for a motion.
Mr. Speaker, I move the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 1060.
Chairman Jaspers has moved that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 1060. The clerk will read the caption.
House Bill number 1060 to be titled an act to amend Part 3 of Article 4, Chapter 11 of Title 16 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to carrying and possession of firearms.
Chair recognizes Chairman Jaspers to explain his motion.
House Bill 1060 passed the Senate 37-18 yesterday. In 1060, as I presented it to the Senate Judiciary Committee, I had removed sections 1 and 3 from the original bill and omitted some of the courthouse language where our law enforcement can enter the courthouse. During the committee meeting, we worked hard on this again with agreement from myself, Senate Committee, and the Sheriff's Association to further clarify it. Senate Bill 282 was also added in committee. Senate Bill 282 had passed 3916. This was a friendly amendment to 1060. A few highlights of the Georgia Firearms Industry Non-Discrimination Act, Senate Bill 282, are that it will prohibit discrimination in providing financial services to the firearms industry solely on the basis of being in the firearms or ammunition industry. Financial institutions can still make proper underwriting and business decisions. They just can't deny services solely on the basis of them being in those industries. From the original 282, the individual cause of action was removed, and now all claims must go through the Attorney General. And at the request of many members, parity language was added to keep federally chartered and state chartered banks on a level playing field. Mr. Speaker, I recommend we agree to the Senate substitute to 1060 and ask members to vote favorably on it. And with that, I yield the well.
You had a question if you care to yield. The gentleman has yielded the well. On the gentleman's motion that this House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 1060, all those in favor will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machine. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine. On the gentleman's motion, the ayes are 101, the nays are 60, and this House has agreed to the Senate substitute to House Bill 1060. Chair recognizes Chairman Dempsey for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that the House agree to the Senate substitute to HB 1070.
Chairman Dempsey has moved that this House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 1070. The clerk will read the caption.
House Bill 1070 to be entitled an act to amend Article 1 of Chapter 8 of Title 19 of the Fiscal Code of Georgia annotated relating to adoption so as to permit the department to use certain information in the department's records concerning adopted child's biological parents.
Chair recognizes Chairman Dempsey to explain her motion.
Thank you. When HB 1070 left the House, the Senate added a bill that they were particularly in favor of adding to a number of our bills. But thanks to the graciousness of Representative Efstration, it stayed on his bill and was taken off of many others. So it was amended and then amended again. Something was tacked on and then taken off. So it is exactly as it left the House to make sure that adoptions have the best opportunity to make sure children are placed properly. If there are any questions, I will take them. If not, Mr. Speaker, I'll yield the well.
You have no questions. On the lady's motion that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 1070, all those in favor will vote aye, those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machine. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine. On the lady's motion, the ayes are 170, the nays are 0. This House has agreed to the Senate substitute to House Bill 1070. Chair recognizes Representative Watson for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that this House agree to the Senate substitute to HB 1030.
Representative Watson has moved that this House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 1030. The clerk will read the caption.
House Bill 1030 be titled an act to amend Chapter 4, Title 2 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to the Georgia Seed Development Commission.
Chair recognizes Representative Watson to explain his motion.
Mr. Speaker, basically all we did, or all the Senate did, was we went in and further defined licensee in this bill to satisfy all the parties involved. We also added the word crops under the selection, and this bill was dealing with the Seed Development Commission on who can serve on that commission. So there again, we're just trying to expand that definition of who can serve, and it's a good change, and it'll help make the bill better. And I would appreciate your favorable consideration.
On the gentleman's motion that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 1030, all those in favor will vote aye, those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machine. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines. On the gentleman's motion, the ayes are 169, the nays are 0. This House has agreed to the Senate substitute to House Bill 1030. Chair recognizes the chair of the House Rules Committee for an announcement. Now show him a little love now.
You're still not going to get your bills on. There will be a rules meeting in about 5 minutes and 3:41. Just come on down.
House will be in recess until 5 p.m.